Don't buy the wrong VR headset for sim racing because there's so many mistakes that you can make. With so many headsets on the market now, the chances of you buying the wrong headset are higher than ever. When it comes to field of view, refresh rate, pixel density, absolute resolution, but also the quality of the lenses and the type of the panel, there's just so much choice. But you could go out today, you could spend a ton of money on a really expensive headset and you could have a terrible experience where your PC can't even run it. So I've made this video here when I'm going to run through different formats and types of headsets and let you know the pros and the cons. Now, I want to say a big thanks to Pimax, who supplied a lot of headsets for me to review and sponsored me to go out to Vegas so I could make this video. But we're going to talk about the big screen headsets. We're going to talk about the Quest. We're going to talk about the PSVR 2 as well. Don't worry, I'm going to let you know about absolutely everything. But if you want to start with the lightest possible headsets on your head that don't have that bulky form factor, there's 4 headsets really I think you should consider. It's the Dream Air from Pimax, the Dream Air SE from Pimax, and the Big Screen Beyond 2 and the Big Screen Beyond 2E. Now, of those headsets, of those 4, only one of them has 4K per eye, and that is the Dream Air. That is a massive pro if you have a 5090 graphics card or a 4090 graphics card, because you should be able to run it and maybe get up to 90 Hz, has a 72Hz or a 90Hz mode. But unless you have those 2 graphics cards, I would not recommend that you buy the Pimax Dream Air, because you just won't be able to run it to its maximum performance. This is an insane headset, but it needs to be paired with an insane GPU. So let's say you don't have a 5090. That's where you should consider the Dream Air SE or the Big Screen Beyond 2 or Big Screen Beyond 2E, because those headsets have panels that have 2.5K by 2.5K per eye. So 2,500 pixels by 2,500 pixels per eye. So still quite crisp, still really good panels, but not quite as intensive on your GPU. So you can now have, in 2026, this incredibly light form factor with not a bulky headset that has really crisp visuals. Now, when it comes to tracking, you need to bear in mind that unlike some of the other headsets, like the PSVR 2, like the Quest 3, like some of the Pimax ones I'm going to let you know about, the Dream Air SE, the Big Screen Beyond 2 and 2E don't come with inside-out tracking out of the box standardly, so you would need to have some cameras, some infrared sensor things tracking you, unless with Pimax, with that Dream Air, you get the SLAM tracking plate, which kind of clicks on the top, and then you have inside-out tracking. But I just want you to bear that in mind, because there is a bit more hassle normally if you get those headsets. So let's say you don't want hassle. Let's say you want the best bang for buck. I've got 3 headsets in this category. From Pimax, I've got the Pimax Crystal Light. Also, you have to consider the PSVR 2 from PlayStation and also the Quest 3 as well from Meta. The Quest 3 is the cheapest, so if your budget doesn't stretch past that, look at the Quest 3. But if you want something that feels a bit more bespoke for sim racing, you should really check out the Pimax Crystal Light. You see me using it for a long time on the channel, because this has a 120 Hz refresh rate, 2800 by 2800 per eye. It's not an OLED panel, but you get 105 degrees horizontal field of view and 35 PPD pixel density as well. So this is much easier for your PC to run. It's a bulkier headset, but for sim racing, that's usually not too much of a problem, because we're actually kind of simulating someone wearing a headset anyway. And it's at 120 Hz, where if you get it right, it's absolutely sublime to use. Now, the downside is it doesn't have OLED panels in it. It doesn't have micro OLED or OLED. It is a QLED display. So if you do want OLED, that's where you consider the PSVR 2. However, I would say that the Pimax Crystal Light is just made for sim racing. It has better support on PC through the Pimax Play software, because Pimax actually developed these headsets specifically for PC sim racing and flight sim and these sort of games, whereas the PSVR 2 working on PC was kind of a bit of an afterthought, so they could expand that PSVR 2 audience to beyond the PS5. So the Pimax Crystal Light is a great headset for sim racing. It's quite affordable in the VR space. It's not quite as cheap as the Meta Quest 3, and also that pixel density, the PPD pixel density. Remember that number 35, because I'm going to let you know about some ones that go way higher than that. But really, for a lot of people, I think you should be considering or looking into the specs of the Pimax Crystal Light. I've really enjoyed using it on my channel. So what if you want to go for something more intense than that? So we're not talking about that crazy new form factor from the Dream Air and the big screen, but you want to have like the best pixels per eye, but maybe you're happier with a bigger form factor. So that's where the Crystal Super comes in. And this is where things get a bit complicated from Pimax, because they have different optical engines, which are basically you can swap out underneath the whole lens from the headset and replace it with whatever you want. So the default Crystal Super is the QLED version. It's the 50 ppd version, and that version I've also used a lot on the channel. The Crystal Super is harder to run for your PC than the Crystal Lite, because the Crystal Super is doing 4K per eye, so 3800 by 3800 per eye. If you can get that working, it's pin sharp. It's sharper than the Crystal Lite, but it's harder to do so. Also, the refresh rate is actually less than the Pimax Crystal Lite, because for the Crystal Super, it's either 72 or 90 Hz. The Crystal Lite actually does 60, 72, 90, or 120. So I do miss on my Crystal Super not being able to get up to 120 Hz, but it's a bit more complicated than that, because my PC wouldn't really be able to get up to 120 Hz anyway, and that's me using a 4090 graphics card. So with the standard 50 ppd, obviously that's a massive increase over the Crystal Lite, which is 35 ppd, and also you get 127 degrees field of view as well, so it has more field of view. All of that contributes, by the way, to it just being harder to run. It has those inside out cameras like the Crystal Lite, so you don't need external tracking devices. You can just put this on your head and go. It's more expensive than the Crystal Lite as well, but that's because you are getting a better quality panel. Now, I'll put all the prices in the description because they change all the time, and Pimax especially are always changing discount codes, which on one hand is great because you're getting discounts. On the other hand, it's a little bit hard for me to track it, so I'll just put them in the description. But bear in mind that the Crystal Super is more expensive than the Crystal Lite. Again, that's why I wanted to cover the Crystal Lite, the Meta Quest 3, and the PlayStation PSVR 2, because those are more affordable headsets, but they don't have anywhere near the same panel quality as the Pimax Crystal Super. Now, when it comes to changing the lenses, you do want to understand what you're trying to aim for with sim racing when you decide which optical engine to get. I'm showing you on screen how simple it is to do, so you don't need to worry about getting your screwdriver out and changing anything like that. But I want to start with the Crystal Super 57 ppd options. This is an optical engine that you can choose to get with Pimax that a lot of people don't really rate, to be honest. It's not a rated option. However, I need to give you my honest impression. For sim racing, this is the lens that I preferred the most in iRacing driving Formula cars. And that might be very specifically because of where the focusing point is or something like that. So the 57 ppd version, as the name suggests, has 57 ppd. So it has a higher pixel density than the standard 50 version. It has a narrower field of view, 106 degrees. Now, if you remember, that's basically the same as the Pimax Crystal Lite. So you do have a pin sharp experience with a slightly narrower field of view. Now, like I said, a lot of people don't really rate this lens. They don't see the point, given some of the other ones I'm going to let you know about. But for sim racing, in my opinion, the focusing point always seemed to be like right around the apex. So it felt like the most stereoscopic 3D to me. I had a lot of depth perception, and I found that very helpful driving cars in sim racing, that I could perceive the apex arriving in a 3D fashion. Now, what most people say you should get for sim racing from Pimax, if you want to get an optical engine for the Crystal Super, is the ultra-wide variant. Now, you can understand this because, you know, having this wide field of view, it just means that it's just more immersive for sim racing. So the ultra-wide optical engine has 50 ppd, same as the standard one, but 140 degrees field of view horizontally, which is massive. Now, again, from my experience, when you're driving, say, a Formula car, you actually end up kind of seeing your headrest. So to me, the field of view is so wide that it becomes a little bit unrealistic. But that's just my perception. A lot of people say this is the best one to get for sim racing because you have the most immersive field of view. And the wider the field of view, it means you have less of a goggles effect where you feel like you're looking through goggles. I don't have that anyway. Maybe that's just my eyes, but a lot of people really rate the ultra-wide version. The other thing you can get with the Pimax Crystal Super is, remember, 4K resolution per eye. You can get the Super Micro OLED panel. So this is an OLED panel, so you have those incredible colors, and I would say also the brightness. The brightness just feels more sophisticated. It feels more emotive. It kind of really takes you into the time of day of the circuit where you are. Again, 4K basically per eye, 53 ppd, runs up to 90 Hz, and we have 116 degrees field of view. So many of those stats are a little bit better than the standard Crystal Super and also the Crystal Light as well. Now, this is a very similar panel as I understand it, if not the same panel to the one in the Dream Air. So there's an interesting question. If you have the budget, because we're talking about the most expensive stuff now, if you have the budget and you have the graphics card, which kind of go a little bit hand in hand, there's no real trade-off if you have that SLAM tracking faceplate to the Dream Air to getting the Dream Air over the Crystal Super. Like, if you want to have that light form factor, in my opinion, you're not going to be sacrificing anything by getting the Dream Air over the Crystal Super Micro OLED. Now, again, that's just my opinion and that's my experience from trying them in Las Vegas. I do need to get the Dream Air properly in from Pimax so I can do some more testing of it. But that's a great place we've arrived to in 2026 where you can have the best panel out there, basically, but also have it in the best form factor. So I hope you found this video helpful. I'll put a load of prices and the products in the description below. If you've got any questions, let me know. If you've got any thoughts, let me know. If you use any of these headsets, let me know in the comments as well, because it's kind of like a small community, the VR sim racing community, and it's important that I think we help people honestly on what the best headsets are for different use cases, which is what I've tried in this video. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one.